Hello friends, Steve Stockton here with you. Welcome to our latest video. In this episode, we bring you something a lot different. This time we're taking a look at the Black Vault. That's the CIA's research, files, and experiments conducted on rats, dogs, monkeys, and yes, humans. Join me. Let's walk and see. But before we begin, please take a moment to make sure you're subscribed, notification bell is on, and also you can click join. Become a member of the channel, get some exclusive members only perks. In 2018, American citizens seemed to band together and force the federal government into releasing documents related to the project we now know referred to as MKULTRA. This project was centered around mind control operations in an unknown amount of endless black sites around the United States. There have been many people that have come forward, admitting they were victims of MKUltra, many of them troubled by their childhood, full of experiments, abuse, and outright torture. These people have continually received visits from what seems to be government officials, the actual, real-life men in black. The men never identify themselves and rarely acknowledge the victims orally. They are seen stalking the victims, watching from a distance, and listening in on phone calls. The victims are often followed and cornered in stores and on roads, locked in by cars with these men inside and perpetually harassed. Victims set upon by these men often move and go into hiding in fear for their and their families' lives. Although most of the victims remain in the shadows, some of them even going as far to use fake identities and never going out in public for fear of being found again. But some of them are very outspoken on social media. They have many accounts, as they seemingly get censored or just deleted, with no way to reinstate those accounts. There are supposedly many celebrities involved in some of these operations, and many of the victims have spoken out against a supposed Hollywood ring. It includes Freemasons, politicians, and shadowy clubs, an elite class of rulers globally whose lists are unknown to the rest of us. The Black Vault is a coordinated effort, some say led by a man named John Greenwald Jr. There's an actual website called the Black Vault, which you can visit at www.theblackvault.com, where he compiled much of his work, research, and Freedom of Information Act requests, which did result in him receiving declassified documents. According to United States Code Section C 552, the Freedom of Information Act offers citizens a copy of records that obtain federal actions, emails, calls, military operations, spy operations, homeland security operations, and more personal information about another person, such as addresses, work records, school records, and more. The FOIA, as it's shortened to, requests are often answered, yet not responded to for months or years. The records are often redacted with black lines through them to protect the identities of certain people, governments, or places. File number C00021825, dated 28 September 1967, begins with "Dear Doctor," and goes on to describe what appears to be an experiment in mind control. It seems to have begun with rats, but continued on with dogs, using electrodes, controlling such behaviors as turning, running, and stopping. A direct quote from that first letter is as follows. "As you knew, I spent about 3 years working in the research area of rewarding electrical stimulation of the brain, the Olds effect, as it has sometimes been called. The work that we did involved both basic and applied aspects. In the laboratory, we performed a number of experiments with rats. In the open field, we employed dogs of several breeds. The culmination of our work was several publications that elucidated the nature of brain stimulation reward. In addition to a demonstrated procedure for controlling the free feel behaviors of an unrestrained dog, behavioral control was limited to distances of 100 to 200 yards at most. Both kinds of work were described in detail in the final report for that project, information redacted here, which I believe you have in your possession. We could establish an under-the-roof laboratory that would be equipped to study the basic parameters of the control procedure using a small animal, such as the rat. I have in mind the construction of a sizable enclosure, a miniature representation of an open terrain. The letter/document goes on to say that the writer believes work in an open field could be useful, as they had already tested on dogs and a range of species could be used. They questioned whether the experiment, stereotaxic atlases, which is defined as a number of records of brain structure of a particular animal accompanied with coordinates, would be efficient or available for a specific species, stating that hardware was an issue and not the behavioral requirements of such an experiment. The next part of the document states, quote, "There are behavioral problems that can be researched, however. If a small animal is to move from point A to point B, automatically controlled or under constant control by a human, what problems of competing rewards do we face? How easily is the animal distracted, and by what? If control is lost, how may it be reestablished?" End quote. Now, this document may sound like simple beginnings of research into dog behavior and manipulation to the common person. However, with all the dog sightings and the recent forthcomings of statements made by veterans, police, park rangers, and regular citizens, is this the proof of the phenomenon we know as dogmen? Are these the ancestors to the dog-like creatures people are seeing out in the woods and national parks? Do these dogs have advanced intelligence? Is that intelligence a response or a direct reaction to these experiments? Of course, we'll never get straight answers from any of the agencies that worked on these experiments, but for now, we do know these experiments really happened, and these dogs were being controlled by electronic means. The dogmen in question that we keep hearing about are creatures that stand on two legs or sometimes walk on four like a dog. They are massive in size. Often, reports state they are 8 to 10 feet tall, excessive muscles that stand out very defined like a bodybuilder's, and these creatures are highly intelligent. They are sneaky, prefer to stay out of sight, or often run when they are seen. They can run up trees at phenomenal speeds and jump from branch to branch dozens of feet off the ground. They are fast and quiet. Although these creatures are said to be so large and terrifying at first sight, they have been known to protect humans, especially in circumstances when the human was being attacked or stalked by the creature some call Bigfoot. For some unknown reason, many stories have come out saying that the unsuspecting human was surprised by the Bigfoot creatures, and then, seemingly out of nowhere, the dogmen attack and chase off the Bigfoot. We don't know why this happens, and there haven't been any documented cases declassified of Bigfoot being a verified creature, so to say. Now, these dogmen creatures are what this community believes to be the legend called werewolves, massive beings that are human-like in their looks, behavior, and even their eyes. It seems they have an awareness of themselves and the humans around them above those of actual recognized dog species. They are conspicuous when near humans, ensuring they don't get close most of the time. They intentionally hide behind trees, bushes, and buildings. They do hunt, often seen eating the recently deceased carcasses of deer, rabbits, and more. Despite their enormous size, they are astonishingly quiet, able to walk right up to an innocent human out on a hike or picnic. The only telltale sign that they are near is the description of their smell. The smell, often described as the most horrendous smell hikers and campers have ever smelled, similar to that of a Bigfoot, is said to smell like death or a rotting animal. The smell of death is often unmistakable. People who have been the unfortunate ones to experience this know that this particular smell will hit you with an immediate sense of dread. A trigger to your instincts, if you will. Basic human survival, something is wrong, that type of warning. This smell instantly hooks you into the scene, bringing about awareness of your surroundings that's very heightened in every sense, searching for the source of it. Hunters and hikers often freeze when smells like this present themselves. The smell is often accompanied by a predator. Usually it's a big one, such as a bear, mountain lion, or the elusive panther, animals that you don't want to be caught off guard around. Ones that will attack you, sometimes with zero provocation, but you have to remember you're in their territory without their permission. The next occurrence seems to be the presentation of the creatures, often letting the humans spot them, but not close enough to endanger themselves. They may peek around trees or just confront the visitor's face on, and those stories usually don't end in happy retellings. There seems to be two types of these creatures as well. The dogmen, who seem to be a more relaxed, helpful, or the friendly type. The second type is the exact opposite, unfriendly, even aggressive in some reports, chasing, howling, and growling at people who mistakenly get too close. One interesting report from the subreddit /dogmen came from user Electrical Day 5402 and states, quote, This town has a concealed history of UFO and extraterrestrial sightings. I do wonder if their extraterrestrials were indeed bipedal dogmen and not greys, as I initially assumed. Orb-like UFOs are common to spot around here. They stay up far beyond the 30-minute mark, ruling out drones, and they are eerily silent. But when they do hover closer to the ground, I do know DOGMAN doesn't like that. And when one starts howling about the nearing orb-like UFO, it sets off all the others too. I wonder how many people thought the neighborhood dogs were reacting to UFOs, not realizing it was DOGMAN. End quote. So is it possible that these experiments had an unsuspected effect on these dogs? That it created a somehow different species or a hybrid out of them? Maybe some of them escaped, which wouldn't be too rare for these laboratory experiments. When these experiments happen, they can't exactly announce to the public that a sick or deformed animal is loose, especially when you consider the time period, the 50s and 60s, which were filled with civil rights battles and a more conservative time in general. What are the chances that the government would have ever admitted to losing these dogs? Now, someone in our community managed to compile a Google Map document of dogmen sightings around the USA. Seems they're concentrated in the states of Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These are just a few of the sightings that are out there. You can find many, many on Reddit or YouTube channels where viewers send in their personal accounts. Sometimes you hear another story. Sometimes you may hear a story when you're just out and about. Gas stations, small country stores, or just in passing. The name on the Black Vault declassified documents have been blocked out. These documents include what is labeled as a final report, dated 1st of July 1962 to the 30th of September 1965, titled Remote Control of Behavior with Rewarding Electrical Stimulation of the Brain. One of the most interesting things about this report is the very first abstract, also referred to as reasons or purposes of research. The abstract is blocked out, and so far, no one has come forward admitting what the initial purpose of all this was. The report is 69 pages long and states, quote, the specific aim or the research program was to examine the feasibility of controlling the behavior of a dog in an open field by means of remotely triggered electrical stimulation of the brain, end quote. What would be the purpose of controlling a dog? Is it a military purpose? Something more nefarious? There are photographs accompanying these files that show the dogs. Later, some of the dogs were identified as beagles, with admittance that there were several other breeds used, but never named, with strange-looking scientific equipment attached to their bodies and heads. On MichigansThumb.com, T.R. Smith writes, the first reported sighting of a dogman creature was in 1887. She also states, quote, similar sightings occurred more frequently throughout the 1950s in Allegan County. Then in the 1960s, reports of seeing the beast came from Cross Village, Big Rapids, and Manistee County, end quote. Were these locations of some of these black sites? We'll never know. The report of the experiments ends with diagrams and notes. There were bolts placed in the dog's body, along with a type of glue and wires. The notes describe the sessions as being up to 8 or more hours in length. Also stating the dogs are routinely given a quarter grain of morphine hydrochloride 45 minutes prior to surgery. Deep surgical anesthesia is accompanied with phenobarbital, end quote. We know these experiments continue as the Beagle Freedom Project sent out seething letters to Anthony Fauci and the National Institute of Health division he was presiding over. On October 27, 2021, the New York Post writer Jackie Sallow wrote, quote, a bombshell report from the watchdog group White Coat Waste Project claimed that the agency spent $1.68 million in taxpayer funds on drug tests on 44 beagle puppies. The writer slammed the experiments, which allegedly also involved locking the dogs in cages with hungry sandflies so that the insects could eat them alive, as unethical. Congresswoman Nancy Mace, with nearly 24 bipartisan colleagues, sent a letter about these experiments to Dr. Fauci on October 21, 2021, which is available to read on the whitecoatwaste.org website. These experiments add up to tens of millions of dollars over the course of 20-plus years. It doesn't matter who's performing these experiments, but we can't help but wonder if these and future ones will cause more dogmen or hybrid creatures that are similar to them. We do love to report, though, that over 4,000 beagles were rescued, treated, and adopted from a lab in 2019, located in Virginia. That lab is now closed down. Or could it be that maybe dogmen are actually werewolves? Maybe some of them have just become accustomed to humans, and that's why they're not as violent when these encounters are happening. Or could it be wild dogs that have had experiments performed that have transformed their minds, bodies, and even souls? If you believe dogs have a soul, which I do. There are so many questions and not nearly enough answers. Currently, there are over 14,000 animal shelters and rescue groups in the USA alone. An estimated 6 million animals pass through these shelters every day. Hopefully, one day we will decrease those numbers and be able to provide safe and loving homes for them all. May all of you stay safe and keep an eye out for those furry, four-legged beasts. Well, friends, there you have it. Told you this was something a little different. What do you think? What's your theory on the Dogman? Werewolf? Government experiment gone awry? Or maybe something we haven't considered? As always, I look forward to your comments, but please, keep it friendly and respectful. Till we meet again, be good to yourselves and each other. Stay safe out there. As for me, I'll see you a little further on down the trail. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time. Please hug your animals close and tell them I said hi.